In September 2011, 18-year-old Nieko is working odd jobs for the family while preparing to apply to the military.
His big thing was the Navy SEALs. He wanted to be a Navy SEAL, like his dad.
He was training with my father. He would do a lot of workouts, and he was helping my stepfather a lot with some different apartment buildings that we own.
Friday, September 30th, 2011. In the evening, Neko's mom, Monica, receives a call from her brother. He says that Nieko and another young man named ROBBIE Knight swung by his house in Addison around 2 p.m. that day.
Monica said, "ROBBIE Knight, they're not even friends. What are they doing together?" Well, my brother said, "Nieko told me that they were going camping in Buffalo."
And I said, "What do you mean they're going camping? It's cold out." He said, "Well, they met some girls on the internet and they're going to Buffalo to go camping." I tried to call Neko's phone, he wouldn't answer, and I texted him and I said, "I know you were here today because your sneakers are gone and your bedroom door is open. What else did you take?" And I got a text back and it said, "Clothes, duh." And I just thought, oh, now what is he up to?
Neko's uncle also mentions that ROBBIE was driving a truck that he said belongs to his grandfather.
Saturday morning, I went to work. My sister worked with me at that time. We're both hairdressers. The first customers of the day came in. The woman said to my sister, "Did you guys hear about the stolen truck from town?" And I'm reading this article, and I called my brother. And I said, "When Nieko was at your house yesterday, what kind of vehicle were those boys in?" And he starts describing this truck that I'm reading about in the paper.
Monica is unable to reach Nieko that morning. She calls ROBBIE's grandparents in the afternoon to see if they have any information about Nieko and ROBBIE's whereabouts.
One of the first questions that I had asked, does ROBBIE have your truck? And ROBBIE's grandmother said, "We don't have a truck." At that point, I knew that my son and ROBBIE Knight were in this stolen truck.
The grandmother said that ROBBIE appeared at his parents' house in Romulus, Michigan that morning. And ROBBIE's grandmother said, "Well, nobody saw Nieko. Nieko wasn't with him."
I am just frantic. I'm calling my mom, my brother, my sister, my ex-husband. I'm calling everyone I can think of. We have to find Nieko.
My mom did talk to him, or we thought it was him. It was about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and the person that it was on the phone said, "Nana, I can't talk right now. I'll call you right back." And that was the end of contact with Nieko.
I called the state police. I said, "I think my son might have something to do with this stolen truck that I'm reading about in the paper. Ma'am, you're gonna have to call back Monday to talk to an investigator." I'm like, something is going on with my son. Someone needs to look for my son.
Over the weekend, Neko's family accesses his phone records.
As his cell phone pinged in his travels, we found that it went to various locations in New York before heading to Michigan and then heading to Tennessee.
Neko's cell phone pings for the last time at 4:05 p.m. on October 1st on Flintlock Drive in Franklin, Tennessee.
It's about 30 minutes south of Nashville. There are some undercurrents in the community just based on wealth that people don't like to talk about all their secrets. I think it's like that in a lot of small towns.
Nieko spent the summer of 2009 and some of his junior year of high school living in Franklin with an aunt and uncle. But they say they haven't seen Nieko at all. Monday, October 3rd, Neko's mom, Monica, receives something startling in the mail.
There's a letter addressed to Nieko. I opened it up and it was his license. And it had a note attached that said, "I found this on the ground, thought you might need it."
The letter says his license was found in Hornell, a small town in upstate New York, half an hour north of Neko's home in Jasper. The following day, Monica's husband tracks down a phone number for the father of ROBBIE, with whom Nieko was last seen.
Robbie's dad answered the phone, and he said, well, Robbie's with the Michigan State Police right now. When he comes home, I'll have him call you.
When Robbie Knight was questioned by law enforcement in Michigan, he had some sort of psychiatric episode, and he was taken to a psychiatric hospital for evaluation. A few days later, I was on Facebook, and I noticed that Robbie had posted, and it said, just got out the hospital, show me some love.
The next day, Monica learns some shocking news from her brother-in-law.
He said, Monica, Robbie Knight is dead. And I said, what do you mean he's dead? And he said, one of my coworkers told me that they spoke with Robbie's grandparents this morning, and apparently Robbie died last night. He died of an apparent overdose of prescription medication.
It was just like the wind had been sucked right out of my sails. I had sympathy for his family, but as NEKO'S aunt, I was more worried about would we ever find out what happened to him. As far as we knew, Robbie was the last link to NEKO.
Monica combs through NEKO'S call log and reaches out to everyone in Tennessee that he had been in contact with prior to his disappearance. On October 15th, she receives a promising lead from an old classmate of NEKO'S.
One young man called back and said that NEKO had been at his house on October 1st and spent the night. The young man said that the next day they went to play soccer. And then NEKO disappeared, and he didn't know where he went. I immediately called the police. The investigator called him, and he said, I don't know who you are. I'm not comfortable speaking with you. And that was the end of the phone call. I was beside myself. We have a person that says that NEKO was at his house. Why wouldn't you do something about that?
The number of calls between NEKO and this young man raises serious red flags for Monica.
From the time NEKO left New York and went to Michigan and on his way to Tennessee, he called that boy 36 times. So what were they talking about on the phone is my question, that has never been answered.
Why an individual needs to be called 36 times and everyone else is being ignored, or no other contacts are being reached out is very odd to me.
Months pass with little movement in the case. Then, in March 2012, Monica, her sister Rachel, and a friend head to Tennessee to try and get more information from the young man who said NEKO stayed at his house.
Whenever I would ask him anything about NEKO, the father would interject. The boy hardly said anything.
Monica says that from the initial phone call to the in-person meeting, she received 3 different stories from the young man about how NEKO arrived at his house.
NEKO got dropped off. I picked NEKO up 2 blocks from here. NEKO just came walking up to the house. And I asked, was NEKO with anyone? Well, that was just not discussed. It was skipped over and we'd move on to something else.
Monica soon learns a curious detail about the timeline of events. The young man sent NEKO a money order for $90. NEKO picked it up in Ohio 7 hours before his cell phone's final ping in Franklin, Tennessee.
So my question was, why did you send him money? And the boy never gave a direct answer. It was just NEKO needed money. The boy gave me a copy of that money order, and I gave it to the state police.